Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I will be taking a look at the first three issues of the anthology Told to Tell. This is put together by Matthew Mackman of 3T Productions. Matthew's been putting this together since 2021, which is when this came out. Matthew sent me issue 4 when we first started this channel, and I really enjoyed it. Then Sean and I contributed a short piece to issue number 5 of this anthology series, and then Living the Line family member Brandon Graham contributed a cover and a little 2-page, 3-page story to issue number 7, which just came out. So that should still be available. I think issue 5's out of print now. Maybe we'll be getting a second printing, I'm not sure. I did not have all of them, and so Matthew kindly sent me the issues I was missing, which are issues 1 through 3. So we'll go ahead and take a look at this. Matthew puts together really cool anthologies with a wide range of artists and styles. So really diverse tastes and a lot of cool artists. The first strip, I'm just going to show like one little page from each artist of these so we don't spend too long on it. And if you want to buy these, then please hit up Matthew on Instagram. You can just look up 3T Productions or Told to Tell on Instagram, and you can DM Matthew directly and he'll send these to you. This first one has these Dear Diaries. It looks like a daily strip of this cat by the artist Jesse Reclaw. Something that it shows up in a lot of the Told to Tell anthologies are like a sketchbook page where Matthew is getting an artist who's working on a project to give like some sneak peeks of what's going on with that project. So this is a sneak peek of The Adventures of Momo by Steve and Scott Wiggums. And I really like this, that it's not just an anthology, but it's like a little magazine about comics and illustration. You'll get a lot of like just one-page illustration in these by artists that Matthew likes as well. Then there's a piece by Casanova Frankenstein. I haven't read the Casanova Frankenstein that's out from Fantagraphics now, so I don't know if this is like a little short preview of that. It seems like this first issue especially is previews of larger works that will be coming out from other publishers or have come out from other publishers, especially I'll show because there's a list in the back. So this might be part of the Casanova Frankenstein book that Fantagraphics just released. I never got that because it didn't look like my thing, but after reading this, I actually kind of like it. It's almost subversive. It looks like subversive art, but then it's like subverting the subversive punk rock thing. It was kind of interesting. There's a really wild looking thing here by Glenn Pierce. It looks like digital painting, maybe. It's a really strange look. This looks like it got blown up. Then this looks like a really high resolution stuff. Shrunk down, I'm not sure. It's all definitely pre-AI, but some of this stuff feels a little AI-ish to me. So really interesting look. Then you have Joshua of Grand Rapids, who I also done a video of the Joshua of Grand Rapids book, Thankless Opus, with Matthew sent over with these books. So this is a Joshua of Grand Rapids piece. It's about Slavoj Zizek. I think I'm saying the philosopher. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. But it's just kind of going through, and it seems to be poking fun at his views a little bit. Got to be careful showing that one. Then you get a collaboration between Glenn Pierce and Casanova Frankenstein. So that's cool because Matthew's able to bring together some artists that he likes in collaboration, or I don't know if these artists are already collaborating, but that's always cool to see two different aesthetics come together. Really enjoyed that one. There is a 2-page Tom Vigil spread. I think it was from issue 15 of his Faustus series. I'm not going to show that because it's not something I'm going to show on Instagram. Then there's a short piece by Nate McDonough, which is talking about shitting on airplanes and how he finds that to be a pleasurable activity, largely because he's getting more leg room and more peace and quiet in the bathroom on the airplane. So I thought that was funny because I've never found shitting on airplanes particularly fun, and to have it cast in a new light, a fairly convincing argument for it, I thought was interesting. My favorite art in this first issue is this series of what seems like one-page stories, but they all tie together into a story. It's, again, I have to be a little careful with some of the pages I show here because this one's a little pornographic in nature as well, but this is by the artist Hans Rickert. Really like the style, the cartooning style with all the little ticky textural marks and the coloring on that one. Everett Glenn contributes to a lot of these. I was very, very happy in issue 5 of Told to Tell that we got to share some pages with Everett Glenn and Banu Pratap, artists that I'm both really, really high on, and some of the people that we got to interview early on in the life of this channel, and people that I feel like we made friends with in those interviews. So really, really cool to see some more of Everett's work. Everett's work is funny because he is constantly kind of remixing it, and then when you get it all put together in like the unsmooth, it can be rearranged. So anytime I read Everett's work in an anthology, I feel like I've already seen this one, but then I'll hit part of it where I'm like, no, I haven't, I don't know. And that kind of way of working seems to work really well for Everett, and the way those come together when he releases a full book is interesting. And as someone who really likes watching how artists work, it's really cool for me to always be getting things like this where I can, when I have time, go back and compare and see how an artist chose to change things, because those decisions are really instructive to me. But yeah, you can see Everett's got this almost like European clean line style, but then he's applying all these like modern kind of techniques on top of it, and it's a very different take on that style. Love his work. If you have not read Everett Glenn's stuff, you need to go out and get the 2 issues of Unsmooth that are already out. At this point in the book, I'm not quite sure who did this illustration. I'm pretty sure that this little sequence here is by an artist named Glorp. The way that the credits are given in the beginning of the book was a little hard for me to track, because they tell which page numbers, and some artists show multiple times, but there's not page numbers on the book, and I don't want to count. My preference is anthologies is always just put the artist's name at the bottom, so if someone wants to follow up on that, or have a really clear pagination system. But I think this is the artist Glorp. I'm not sure who that is. Then there's another Hans Rickert here. I've got this little printout that tells me I've got a 97 of 150, and at the back you get the list of all of the books that are coming out by these artists. A lot of them, I believe, are what these are little segments of, or what these are promoting. So I think that's really cool. Like here you have Everett Glenn's Unsmooth out from Floating World Comics. It would say Joshua Grand Rapids, Thankless Opus, Senkit Printing, not out yet. I have a copy now. I don't know what printing that is. And it gives you the follow-up of everyone's stuff, which is really great in an anthology. And then there's always like an illustration on the back. So that's issue 1. Here we have issue 2. Really, really cool cover there. The cover is by Theo Ellsworth. Then you get the inside front cover by Victor Cairo. A one-page story here by Max Klottfelter. Max Klottfelter does a couple other one-pagers in the book that I won't show, but they all end with like this foot gag, people being knocked back, foot gag there. So that was a pretty funny thing. This short story is by Nate Garcia. I've been seeing a lot about Nate Garcia on Instagram, but haven't bought any of the work yet. It's interesting. I enjoyed this one all right, but it's definitely not, it didn't give me a clear enough picture about what Nate Garcia is up to, where I'm like running out to buy the new stuff that's coming out. But it's really nice to get some of his work. I continue to look forward to it. I feel like seeing a couple more anthology pieces would probably help me make up my mind about pulling the trigger on that artist. Really like the vibe of the art in this one, even though some of the drawing or some of the compositions aren't exactly my thing. This is by Jeremy Baum. I really like the colors, and some of these designs are really cool. The weird like anthropomorph furry thing isn't really my thing, but the combining it with the aliens and these strange like marker colors, where the markers being used real well to have like directional mark making. So like this side of the chair is being rendered vertically, the floor is being rendered at the diagonal, this one's being rendered in perspective. There's a lot of really cool design stuff going on in here. When I look Jeremy Baum up on Instagram, it seems like this artist does mostly illustrations, so there wasn't much comic work to follow up on, unfortunately. Here's another Victor Cairo, Simp City. There's a couple of these in there. It's obvious a parody of Sin City. Then you get Joshua Cotter working on Nodaway 2, which I know just came out recently from Fantagraphics. So this is another case where Matthew has managed to get like a sketchbook look at a project in development for another publisher. And I think that's a really cool feature of this magazine. This issue also has another Everett Glenn. This is stuff I definitely haven't seen, but these are, I assume, given what's shown down here, quotes from pieces of literature that Everett likes. Like this is the blue octavo notebooks from Kafka, and then an illustration to go along with them. They also kind of have like a tarot card vibe to them with the protector, the shepherd magician. So that's interesting. I haven't seen that from Everett before, but I've seen some of his more like fine art stuff. I know Everett does a lot of painting as well, so it's a really cool look at like some of the different things that he does. Another really interesting story by Kiefer Cross. This sequence is really funny here, where he's getting Lucky tattooed on his back, and the tattoo artist fucks up and tattoos Lucy, and his girlfriend comes in and is like, "Who the fuck is Lucy?" The style in here is interesting. It's definitely a little bit crude in my eyes, but I like the abstraction, and I kind of like how the line work is going in these random patterns. I feel like this is a style that has like another year. I don't know when this came out, but I would really like to check back in with this artist now. I feel like this is could develop into this really interesting like graffiti mural, really interesting interlocking shapes and stuff. There's just some about the values, how the values are handled, that not quite worked out for me, but really interesting there. Then a strange little like sci-fi ice world bit by an artist named Schleppzig, has kind of a Frank Miller kind of crude ink line and these really like powerful figures to it, like the monochromatic coloring and all of that. It's a pretty interesting piece. My favorite art in this second issue is from this story by Simon van de Ende. Really enjoy the image making in here, the texture work, the hatching going on, the turning it into like the blue line. I think this all makes for a really interesting look. This is an artist I'll be following up on. Then the cover artist, Theo Ellsworth, provides a piece here. There's a couple more pieces at the end, just one-off illustrations by other people that we've already looked at. And then you have this fun Mad Magazine parody on the back cover here. So that's really fun as well. Then issue 3 here, it looks to me like maybe David Lynch there on the cover. That's by the artist Andrew Buck. The inside front cover is by Greg Giordano. Really enjoy the Greg Giordano style. There's a number of artists that it kind of seems to be pulling from to create this like graphic but also kind of sketchy punk style. I really like those combinations of like using the tones but then having the wild ink marks and stuff. I found that one to be really interesting. Jared Cody Wolf. This is an artist that was in issue 5 with Sean and I as well, I believe. Really like all of the cool like production tricks that are going on with like the collaged in paper textures in some panels, like these stains. It looks like scans of paint. I don't know how much of this is all done on pieces of like acetate on top of each other, how much of this is put together in the computer, like these stamped, if this was stamped in black and then colorized on the computer, I'm not sure. And that makes it really compelling to me. And then just the design of this, the use of stolen images, makes it a really interesting piece. And the Jared Cody Wolf piece in issue 5 was really interesting piece of design as well. In this issue, you get a peek into the sketchbook of the artist Dan Zvedich, I believe is how you pronounce the name, Zetwatch. And this is from Tales Volume 2. Sorry about that. The power blinked for a second. But there's a look into that sketchbook. This is a feature that, like I said, I really enjoy looking into the process like that. Then a piece by Brandon Lehman. These really funny, like, Yeti characters. Ogres. They're ogres, and they're talking to this dead human head. Probably the thing that's probably of most interest to most people watching this video in issue 3 is there are some storyboards here by Ho Chi Anderson. I know Ho Chi Anderson's a very, very well respected comic artist. I don't think I've actually read anything by Ho Chi Anderson, but seeing a comic artist work on storyboards is pretty cool because those are obviously interrelated disciplines. A really fun piece here by Nathan Uten, where you got a lot of really cool, again, production and graphic design techniques going on, and then this strange thing where you got like the claw game coming in and ripping this guy's head off. A lot of the stories in these are pretty surreal or like it's hard to pull any direct meaning out of them. They're all very short and experimental. That's another thing that I appreciate about what Matthew's doing here is he'll kind of set up a framework for artists to really try something new. I don't know if he does it with everyone, but like with me and Sean, he kind of gave us like a very kernel of like what he would like to see, but then when we didn't do exactly that, he took it anyways, but it like influenced what we were thinking. So he's curating in a sense, and I don't know how many of these that's happening in, but there tends to develop like some kind of unity between the majority of the stories or the vibe in each one. So there seems to be some kind of really thoughtful curatorial practice behind all of these. This is by the artist Henri Dumas. Little Henri and Slumberland was a book I really enjoyed last year. Really enjoyed Henri's mark making style, really intense, like a lot of stippling and texture work. You can see all of this, like all the stippling here, and then the white on black stippling. Really cool. Always excited to get some more of Henri Dumas' work. A Desmond Reed piece. This one's pretty funny because the character's coming in and saying, well, I didn't get accepted to the art program. They said my style was cartoony. With this really great cartoony style that has all this wonderful use of color, anyone who's turning this down, I think, is a bit silly. So that's pretty funny. It's just like a conversation about getting rejection letters in art school. Another piece by Glenn Pierce here. Glenn Pierce, Everett Glenn, Joshua Grand Rapids are people who come back a lot in these anthologies. Jared Cody Wolf. It's nice to see the Glenn Pierce working in different styles, like from that very painterly style in the first one to kind of a halfway point between the more cartoony and the painterly here, and then much more cartoony there. It's really interesting to see an artist like flexing between these different styles and then going back to the more realistic rendering here. I'm not quite certain within the context of the story what justifies that, but whatever, it's an interesting look. This is the Joshua of Grand Rapids entry for this one. Really like seeing Joshua of Grand Rapids work in color after looking at the Thankless Opus in black and white. And then comparing it to this, I think this artist really like levels their art up when working with color. There's such wild compositions and so much energy in the compositions. I think adding the color to that, getting some of these really high contrast, complementary colors and stuff, being able to use colored line makes the work look more artistic and sophisticated. Some things that look a little rough in black and white seem much more intentional in color. So I really like seeing that, and I'd love to see more by Joshua of Grand Rapids in color. Especially like this drawing here, I think is really stellar. A whole book done in that approach with it looks like colored pencil would be really cool. A short little piece by Tony Millionaire of the sock puppet fame. So that's the other cool thing about these anthologies is you get a real like diverse range of where people are at in their career. Tony Millionaire, pretty well established. The Ho Chi Anderson, pretty well established. And then you have someone like Joshua Grand Rapids, who I wouldn't have heard about until here. You have Brandon Graham in a later issue right up against, someone that's in the small press. And I think that's a really cool thing that Matthew's doing as well. Kind of has, I think, one of the reasons we resonate with each other is we have the same view of comics as a medium. We don't really care about who's where in their career or what company it's coming from. It's just, do I like it or not? And that these people can all exist on the same page is really awesome. This story here is by Corinne Halbert. This is like fun little vampire story. And then there's another Jesse James Reclaw, who did the inside front cover of one of the issues, doing these really awesome spoofs of famous cartoon strips. I'm not sure if these are redrawn. It looks like it's redrawn to some extent because some of the line work doesn't look exactly like what I would think. There's like a similarity in thickness and stuff. Like the Dagwood stuff doesn't feel quite as crisp, but they're signed by the actual artist. So this may be a case where these were just swiped and then put the lettering in. But it looks like these were swiped and re-inked and then had the lettering put in them. And I really like the play on that. And you can see the names of the things are changed, and so that I really enjoyed these pieces. It's always tempting for me to do stuff like this too, because it's just so much fun to pay tribute and try out different styles. But Also, now for me, it's like I got to do something that's totally my own all the way through. I've done too much of this swiping and things like that. But this is an approach to comics making. I think we have such a rich history now of things like Kathy or Peanuts that have their own meaning to them. It's really hard not to want to leverage that meaning. Another Desmond Reed piece here. You can see again, anyone that's rejecting this artist from art school is out of their mind. Again, a list of now just basically the artists' Instagram and their where you can buy their stuff. Not so much a list of books anymore. So now you could just follow any particular artist and go to their store and get their books from them, which is, I would love to have a website, and I've said this a number of times, I think, but if someone can build it where artists can just go, like one website that we could all go to and just search artists and immediately be able to buy right from their artists. Oh, that's why I recognize the Corinne Halbert. That's the Acid Nuns. Okay, I thought that looked familiar. I haven't read that yet, but I've seen that. That's why that's familiar. And then on the back is Nate Van Dyke, who's a really cool artist. I remember first seeing Nate's stuff in like 2005 in the Bay Area. I don't know if he's a Bay Area artist, but some people that I worked in a frame shop with were a real big fan of his. So this is really cool to see a Nate Van Dyke on here. And there's another piece in here somewhere by Nate Van Dyke, but a really cool marker sketch piece. So as always with Told to Tell, as you can see, a real good variety of artists, a real good variety of styles and types of comics and interests and genres or not genres. So keep an eye out. Definitely follow Matthew on Instagram at Told to Tell or 3T Publications, 3T Press, and you can probably still order some of these. I don't know what's all still in stock or out of stock, but definitely keep your eye on upcoming issues, because it seems like each issue's just also getting like a wider net cast on the type of people that are involved. So really cool series. They're really limited runs, like 100 and 150 issues a piece. This is something Matthew's just doing because I think he's a real big fan of comics and he just wants to put together stuff that he likes and put it out and share it with people, which is always my favorite approach to any kind of art form, is for the pure love of it. So big fan of Told to Tell. That's why we contributed, and I'm really happy now to have a complete collection, because I was a bit bummed that we didn't have a complete collection available to me to look at earlier on. So go out, follow Matthew, order some stuff from him, support good underground comics.
Make sure to like, smash that subscribe button, and ring that bell.